Hello, and welcome back to the Summer Writing Club. I'm Guinevere from Storybird, and in this video series, we're giving you tips on how to write awesome stories. In the last video, we talked about character development, how to figure out who your characters are and understand better what motivates them. By the end of that exercise, you should have gotten a pretty clear picture of what your character wants and what obstacles or problems stand in the way. Your next challenge is to figure out how exactly they're going to get past those obstacles. In today's writer's workshop, we're going to send your characters on a little road trip. Not an actual road trip, unless you're in a Jack Kerouac kind of mood and that's what your story is about. No, the journey we're talking about today is the one your character will take to get from the beginning of your story to the end. Now, everyone knows that before you embark on a road trip, you should have some idea of where you're going. A map can come in really handy if you want to avoid getting lost. Story mapping is an exercise you can do to lay out the plot of your story and guide your writing as you go. Every story, no matter what the genre, whether it's a mystery, a romance, sci-fi thriller, or a picture book, has a beginning, a middle, and an end. At the beginning, you'll introduce the character or main characters and give a little backstory. This history helps your reader understand where your characters are coming from and what events happened in the past leading up to your story. You'll also need to set the stage. Does your story take place in the past, the present, or the future? Is it an imaginary world or the one we live in? Will there be magic involved? Do people have special powers? Or do real-world rules apply? This is what's called the setting, and it's an important starting point because it explains where your story begins and prepares the reader for the coming action. You don't want them to get lost before you even get started. After you've gotten the reader oriented, there is typically some sort of conflict that sets off a chain of reactions and starts the action moving. Think of this part of your story map as a mountain rising out of the ground. The tension in your story should build as you get farther along and closer to the peak or the climax of your story. A great trick to remember when you're mapping out your story is the rule of threes. You might have heard the expression that 3 is the magic number. Well, this is especially true in stories. Our brains love the rhythm and simplicity of patterns of 3. It's why it's so easy to remember things like stop, drop, and roll, or rock, paper, scissors. When you're writing, it can be helpful to think of the action or events in your stories happening in threes. The little pigs build a house of straw, a house of sticks, and a house of bricks. The oatmeal is too hot, too cold, and just right. Cinderella goes to the ball, loses the slipper, and then gets the prince. A lot of other things can happen, and there can be bumps in the road or twists along the way. But if you can sketch out 3 main events in your story map, you'll keep the action moving and your readers engaged. In every story, there's a turning point. The action builds, the tension grows, and then you reach a deciding moment that changes everything. The slipper fits. Harry Potter faces Voldemort alone. The brick house remains standing and the wolf is outside. You've reached the top of your mountain, and everything that follows is what's called falling action. This is the part of the story where you win the battle and send everyone home. Characters who have been on a long journey return home. Captured prisoners are released. Long-lost family members are reunited, and everybody lives happily ever after. But hold on, not so fast. A good story takes time to resolve conflicts and tie up loose ends. The main character should have learned something along the way and grown as a person. Hopefully, he or she sees the world with a new perspective at the end of this adventure. And if a good story provides resolution, an even better story leaves room for the reader's imagination to take over after the story ends. So, are you ready to begin your story map? You can download a printable story mapping worksheet at storybird.com/blog and find more writing tips and story sparks in our Summer Writing Club. I hope that this video has been helpful, and we'll see you back on Storybird. Thanks for watching.